Hello everyone, my name is Dee Dee Bettler and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, 30-Minute Training Vulcan New Section Viewing Tools. Your host today is Anne Gauer. Anne is a geologist with our Technical Services Group and provides consulting and training services to the North American region. A few things before we get started. First, today's webinar will conclude with a question and answer session, so please feel free to write questions in the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Also, you will receive a link to a recording of this webinar by email, in case you'd like to see it again. It will also be available on the Maptek website at a later date. I'll now hand it over to Anne.
Thanks, Dee Dee. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Today, I'm going to be covering all of these features, which are included in version 10.0.3. Today, we'll be looking at how to set up and use a set list of section views. This includes orthogonal and non-orthogonal plan views. And along with those sections, we'll be looking at section attributes that can be applied to both layer and triangulation data. Why would we want to set up these section views? Well, to have a list of set section views, it creates for better efficiency, better viewability of your data, and it creates for an easier audit of your data with reproducible sections. Now we'll jump over to Vulcan. All right, so in our classic view or classic create section, under view, create section, there's a lot of options here, but usually you would just pick a clipping width and we can choose a line segment because we have this set of section lines. Now I would click a line segment to get into that section. If I need to get into a different section, I need to get out of section, go back into view, create section, and pick a different set of lines. Now what we're going to create today is a set list of sections. So if I'm in my sections list, now I can go to a specific easting, northing, or elevation, and it will bring me right to that northing or easting. Now, in order to create those sections, I'm going to jump over to a different data set. To create those sections, we're going to go to View, Section Definition. Now I'm going to name this section file webinar _ orthogonal. The section list can be named whatever we'd like. The first set of section lists are going to be my eastings. So I'll set the eastings, but this plane type has to match. Or it doesn't have to match the name, but we need to tell it what type of sections we're creating. So we have an easting set of sections, and this plane level has to be eastings. Now when I pick my start and end easting, I can take a look at what we have here. So my start easting is going to be -275, and my end easting section is going to be 2125. The step here in my eastings is 100. Usually my clipping width, just like in our create view, we need to pick a clipping width. In this case, this is going to be 50, which is half of our stepping width. And I'm going to auto-name each section to easting, and it's going to be starting with a 0. On the right, we can pick which way we're going to be facing. So I'm going to pick east and append. This will create my list of sections. I need to save this up at the top, and I can now create my northing sections. So northings, make sure my section type is also northing, and my section plane is northing. So everything's matching. Now my northings, if I look at my picture, are going to be from -5 to 2045. And my step this time is a little bit shorter. So this time it's about 25. 25. And I'm going to set my clipping width to half that, so 12.5. And my name will be starting with northing, and I'll be facing north. I append that, now I have each of my northing sections. I'm going to make sure I save at the top, and now I can press OK to use those sections. Now to use those sections, I can right-click on my section, my toolbar, blank area, and go to Sections. I'm going to browse to my new webinar orthogonal spec file, and when I pull down the list, I should have my eastings and my northings. When I go directly to any of these sections, I can even bring up my overview window and take a look at where I am. So if I click on any section, you can see that my section on the left in my overview is changing to that section. Now I can switch to northing and change to those sections. All right. Also, while we're in section view, we can also use this slice toolbar. If we use this slice toolbar, we are no longer connected to the section set list. So if we change the step here to 20 and move, it may or may not be on the same section as our list sections. So if I want to get back into a perfect section, I can go to a specific list section and it'll get back onto that plane. All right, now we'll show you. So if we're in these northings, or eastings for that matter, it looks a little messy. So we can't quite tell what's going on. If I rotate this, we can see that there's polygons coming in and out of this section. So if I want to see exactly what's going on in this section, I can use section attributes. Section attributes can be defined in two ways. Under Design, Attribute Edit, Section Attribute is our first way, and I'll change this by layer for both the northings and the eastings. So cross points, cross sections, and widths will be applied to all polygons on the screen. Now that's switched our view, and I'll explain what each of these options is doing. I'm going to bring back that option just by selecting the layer. And so we have three different options here. Cross sections will show the plane of the polygon that's coming through that section. Cross points will show where the polygons are coming in and out of section at the polygon line. And using section widths will allow us to override whatever widths that we set up for these eastings, which was 50 and 50 on either side. But in this case, these objects are set to 0.1. So if I rotate this, or even if I set my front and back here to something rather large, it's still going to remain at this section. But notice none of the section attributes have been applied to the grid. So we can see more of that because we have a larger front and back here. I'm going to save that, and we'll flip to our non-orthogonal type views. In this case, our ore body is in a non-orthogonal manner. So it's not a specific easting or northing, but it has a major direction at an angle. So again, I'm going to go to View, Section Definition to set this up. I'm going to go to Webinar, or I'm going to call it Webinar Non-Orthogonal. This will be a different spec file because it's a different ore body. The section list this time I'm going to call Major. And the section type needs to be a custom section. So any of these custom 1, 2, or 3 can be at a non-orthogonal or angled section. Now, instead of a level, easting, or northing, I'm going to choose points. Just like if you think back into your create view section, your classic create section view, we can choose 2 points to create a section. This is the same manner. So in this time, we're going to choose the number of sections. So we will use 25, and our step here between sections is 15. The clipping width is going to be 7.5, and I'm going to auto name this to major. And instead of starting at 0, I'm going to take a look at my section list here, or my section lines, and the first section starts at 550. So I'm going to put that at 550, and it will count up 15 units every time it makes a new section. Now the facing I've put into a layer to understand that a little bit better. When we're going to be creating our points or selecting points, we're going to select points from left to right. So when we're facing left to right, it's viewing, in this case, to the northwest. If we're going to face right to left, it's going to view the opposite way and face to the southeast. These diagrams will be in a future help version if you're interested. All right, and so we'll face left to right, and I'm going to use digitize to select my points. I'm going to use the lines that already exist here so that I'm making sure that I'm on a section, on exact sections that my polygons are on. I'm going to use snap to point, and I'm going to use this first section as my vector. So I'm going to snap 2 points on this line, and it will create my sections to the southeast. And I want those sections to be parallel to that vector that I just created. So there's my section lines. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to create one more called plan. In this case, we're going to use a plan section type, and I'm going to choose level. So for this view, I want to make sure that I have my start at the highest, which is 1,220, and the end at my lowest, which is 780. My step this time between levels is 44, and my clipping is going to be 22. All right, now the auto name, I'm going to use bench this time. The naming offset I'm going to leave at 0 so that every elevation that it creates is going to be at the elevation that it's at. So I'm going to append, and it's created my benches, so I'm going to save that at the top and press OK so I can use that. So now in my sections toolbar here, I can go to my webinar non-orthogonal and choose my major directions, or choose my plan view directions. Notice too that this data has been, the section attributes have been applied. I can also see that in my properties window. If I click on any of these polygons and open my properties window, which is just to the right of the Maptek start button, the properties window has show cross sections, show cross points, and use cross section widths checked on, with the front and back width of 0.1. So the section attributes are applied to each object, and those objects are saved, or that data is saved to the object. So the section attributes aren't connected at all with the section list, or the set section list that we've created. All right, so instead of using my section list here, I can also use hotkeys. So if I go to Workbench Customize, I can create my own set of hotkeys. Those hotkeys can be found in the Envisage View menu and under Switch to Easting, Northing, Plan, and Custom 1, 2, and 3. Now on the right, we're going to go to Hotkeys, and you can drop and drag any of these to the hotkey list, and then select or just type in a set of hotkeys. So my custom 2 I'm going to set as Control-Shift-J, and I'm going to use Apply to put that onto the list. Once I'm done, I'm going to press OK and save it as a file. Now, when I hover over any of these sections and I use my set of hotkeys, it will go directly to that section. If I hover over this plan view and I use my Control-Shift-P, it should go directly to that plan view. If I want to go back to the last section that I'm in, I would have had to remember where I was in these sections. However, I can lock where I am, or I can lock that center of rotation on one of the sections. So if I lock it here and in the section that I'm in, I can use this lock button here and click on that section. Now it's locked, and it doesn't matter where my mouse is. If I use my hotkeys, I can switch back and forth between those two sections. To unlock, I can use this button again. Now to lock and unlock, instead of using the button, you can also use your spacebar. So if I'm hovered over this section, for example, use my spacebar, and now it's switched to unlock over here, and I can use those keys again to switch back and forth between those two views. I'm going to now switch to another set of data with pit topography. All right, so if I get into a specific section here, I've already created my plan view sections, so I can get into a specific bench elevation with this list. I can also switch through this list by using my control keys and page up and page down. All right, and so the way that I did this is that I applied, so where we are in section, the highlighted area is, if I rotate this, that's where we are. However, even though we're in section, we can see that entire topography. So in order to see that entire topography, I can apply section attributes. So design attribute edit, section attribute again. Now to my pit all layer, so I have two layers. I have a pit all layer and a pit highlight layer. The pit all layer will have my use section widths at something super wide. So anywhere that I'm at in section, it will show the entire topography. If I do the same thing for my highlight option, now I have a width of 0.1, so it's something really small. So now anywhere that I'm at in the section, I will only see what is at that section. However, if I get out of section, I can see that entire, both entire layers. Now I told you before too that we could apply this to triangulations. If I load in my ore body here and use my section spec file for my webinar not orthogonal and get into plan view here, I'm going to load up my topography. So if I load up the topography, remember when we created these northings? The northings were set at 25 section width, right? So if I rotate that, I'm only actually seeing what's at this section, that topography that's at this section. If I select that topography and go back to my properties window, I can look up viewing, and that allows us to set a section width to the data. So if I uncheck that, it's going to use whatever width I have for these northings. If I check that on and put it at something thin, it's only going to give me a line of where I'm at. If I set something really large, it should show me where that entire side of the triangulation. So we can apply it to layers, objects. even drill holes, if you have those loaded. It's just not going to save to the drill holes because drill holes are loaded as a temporary layer, and it will save to permanent layers and triangulations. Are there any questions out there, Dee Dee?
As I mentioned before, please write in any questions through the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Let's see if we have any so far. Here's one. Can you have all the different views or even radiating section on one spec file?
Good question, Dee Dee. Yes, you can have easting, northing, plan, and 3 different custom radiating views on a specific section list.
Great, thanks, Anne. This seems really geology focused. Can engineers or surveyors use these same tools?
Yes, definitely. Anyone that works in section view can use these tools. We originally made this for geologists, but we've realized that all surveyors and engineers have really enjoyed working with this tool that we've talked to this about, and especially that plan view highlight option that I showed with the section attributes.
Great, thanks, Anne. We're nearing the end of our time today. On behalf of the entire Maptek team, thank you for attending. If you have additional questions, feel free to contact Anne directly or email support@maptek.com. We hold a different webinar each month, so please visit maptek.com to view the entire schedule. Thank you and have a great day.